Hello everyone, Oli here, and this is my review of the Sontaran Experiment, the third story of the 12th season of classic Doctor Who, starring Tom Baker as the 4th Doctor. The Sontaran Experiment is the 77th story overall, is 2 parts long, and is written by Bob Baker and Dave Martin. Once again, sorry for the long delay, I had exams and coursework to deal with, but now all that's finished, I should hopefully be doing regular uploads. So the plot of the Sontaran Experiment is as follows. Transmitting down from the Nova Beacon, the Doctor, Sarah, and Harry find themselves on Earth in the far future, long since abandoned by the human race. But it soon becomes clear that they are not alone. A shipwrecked crew of Galactic colonists are being hunted down one by one. What is the creature that lives in the rocks, and what is its purpose for the lethal test it is conducting? Can the Doctor ensure the safety of Earth for future generations of mankind? The Silent Experiment, in my opinion, is a decent story, but I do think it should have been a four-parter. The production of the story was very good, however, with Sontaran Experiment was the first story to be filmed entirely on location. I think this is because Philip Hinchcliffe actually wanted to save money, and it actually worked. It made the story feel post-apocalyptic in a way, well, because of the solar flares that pretty much damaged the Earth several years ago, and I think that was another factor as well. The script was very good, decent dialogue. The direction by Rodney Bennell was quite good, not as good as The Ark in Space, but he still tried his best here. The action scenes were very good, especially between the Doctor and Steyer, even though Tom Baker and Kevin Lindsay had to use stunt doubles because Tom Baker had actually injured his collarbone during the filming of this story, and to hide it, he pretty much had to wear his scarf and that big coat throughout the entire story, and Kevin Lindsay had a heart condition which prevented him from actually doing any heavy lifting in the story. The plot of the story is quite good, although having it two parts didn't really do any justice in my opinion. I felt as if more could have been done, like a bit of character development here, or how to make the Sontaran menacing there. But yeah, but I like the fact that the Sontaran Experiment served as a sequel to both The Ark in Space and The Time Warrior, as this story takes place right after the conclusion of the former, and including references to another beacon. And the latter is the second Sontaran story of Doctor Who, and Sarah mentioned seeing links during the 13th century, and that was when the Time Warrior was set. Steyer's experiments to the Galactic colonists pretty much added to the gothic horror elements that the Hinchcliffe era had, and that was another pretty cool thing about the story. Had some decent moments, such as the fight scene between the Doctor and Steyer, and Steyer's experiments on Sarah Jane when she's seeing like the snakes and all these other scary things happening to her. I do wish the story was a four-part so it could have more moments though. The acting, however, was actually very good once again. Tom Baker, great as ever, and I think this is the first story that Tom Baker actually filmed, and I think he did a pretty good job. Considering the fact that he injured his collarbone during filming, he still performed this story very well. It was a bit obvious that he was suffering from some form of injury because he was wearing his scarf and that brown overcoat goes throughout the entire story. I really liked the scene in the beginning when he was arriving on Earth along with Sarah and Harry, and Harry actually arrived first, and Sarah ended up getting tossed like miles, like a few yards away from them, and she was like, "Help me, help me!" That was quite funny as well. I really liked the scene in the beginning when the Doctor was being interrogated by Kranz, Eric, and Vural. Like the Doctor trying to convince them that he actually came from the Nova Beacon, but they weren't actually listening. Elizabeth Sladen does a good job here as well. She does a fair bit here and there, and I was actually rather satisfied with what she was given. I liked how she was able to, how her and another guy called Roth was able to save the Doctor from Kranz, Eric, and Vural when of course, Roth had actually distracted them. I also liked the bit when Steyer was confronting Sarah Jane after he captured her and Roth. That was a pretty good scene, and it was quite intimidating as well, alongside the other scene which I just mentioned when Sarah was getting we had that fear device on her and she was seeing all these scary things like snakes and all these rocks falling on her and stuff like that. Ian Martin did a good job in the story. He does get a fair bit to do here and there, and he actually does help save the day when he destroys Steyer's ship under the instructions by the Doctor, which instantly killed him. So that was a pretty good scene and a good development for Harry Sullivan as well. So on to the side cast. Not as many, but there was somewhat less well, actually a lot less than the Ark in Space. First off, we had Roth. He was one of the Galactic colonists. And he was experimented on by Steyer. I think he did make him a little bit mad, and he was a good character, and I actually liked him. I was a bit disappointed he died early, and And second of all, we had Kranz, Eric, and Vurl. They were the other Galsec colonists that were stranded on Earth. They thought that the Doctor killed one of the other mates named Zeke, and they were forced to do some experiments by Starry when he captured them. Especially when they had to do that gravity bar task when Starry increased the rate for forcing Kranz and Eric to lift it over Vurl. They were okay characters, and it was sucks that the only bit of dialogue they had with the Doctor in part 2 was when the Doctor, Sarah, and Harry are about to go back to the beacon. The story, we had Field Major Starry at the Sontaran. He was a Sontaran Field Major and he reported to the Marshal. He had to experiment on the Galsec colonists in order to test their fear, strength, and whatnot. He was a good villain, not as impactful as or iconic as Lynx was in the Time Warrior, but he still did a good job. And Starry was played by Kevin Lindsay, who actually played Lynx in the Time Warrior, and he also played the Marshal, so he pretty much had to do double duty, and he still did a good job, even though the Marshal still appeared on screen. Well, actually on the screen, he still did a good job. And the faults I do actually have with the Sontaran Experiment is the pacing. It was good, but for the part one's pacing was actually very good, but it actually felt as if it was paced as if it was going to be like a 4-parter or something, and then when obviously had part one, the normal pacing for part one and part two, it kind of feels a little bit rushed. And it's quite noticeable towards the middle of the story. The other fault I have with the story is the character interaction, especially between Kranz, Eric, Vurl, and the Doctor. They spend most of part one interrogating the Doctor, and then when the Doctor disappears, and then how Steyr captures the trio in the part two, and obviously had to do experiments for Steyr. And then when Steyr is defeated, they only talk to the Doctor again once they're leaving. So it would have been nice to see the four of them at least team up together and defeat Steyr. I do feel as if the story would have benefits from being a 4-parter, to be honest. So to conclude, Sontaran Experiment is a very good story, but it's pretty obvious that it's very filler, and it was just to ease us between getting to Genesis of the Daleks. So I give the Sontaran Experiment a 7 out of 10. My next review is the Genesis of the Daleks, and another one of my favorites from the Tom Baker era. So thank you for watching this review. Let me know your thoughts on Sontaran Experiment and this review. If you haven't, please subscribe to my channel and please join my Discord server in the description box below. Until then, see you later.